reasons. Hi there, little burst. One, because it's been with us since time immemorial, and because of our creation story, making it one of the most sacred plants in our traditional stories. And the other because it's a recent, but is really helpful to us. The most helpful, the one that's most recent, is this broadleaf plantain, Plantago major, Jaganasha mogak, which is talking about like that where the white men go, it goes. Nishinaabe mon, Ojibwe, my family's language. And plantain, it's called soldier's herb in some places. It's called a lot of names. When I was 11, 10. No, it was after my grandfather passed. I was going on 12. I'm a size 15, and I lived in a town where the biggest shoe you can get was size 10. So I got ingrown toenails from the compression of my feet constantly, and I have like big toes. It's one of the reasons I wear boots all the time now, is I don't like people seeing how my feet look because of how mangled they are from all the damage doing that to myself. The nail grew down right into the pad of my toes, so every step I took, I was cutting into my meat. I was just cutting into it and cutting into it. And so I'd wear sandals because of the pain. But now dirt's getting into the inflamed wounds. And so when I was 11 or 12 years old, I had gangrene in my two big toes. And the doctor's like, yeah, we're gonna cut them off next week. Wednesday is surgery, or is a pre-op, and then we're gonna go right into surgery that night. So my grandmother on Sunday, hearing about this, went into the front yard, and she's a little tiny Nishinaabe, little Nokomis, little granny. And she was raised by her father, my great-grandfather, George Potash. She was raised by him in the bush. She was the oldest of all the kids. So even though she was a girl, she was the one that he would take out on the trap line, help her, have her help him skin out the muskrats and the beaver and stuff. And so she learned a lot. And she picked plantain and brought it inside. She had like about that much of it, and she threw it into a pot and she started boiling it, boiling it down to a sludge, like this really dark green, almost black green. And then she had my dad and my uncle hold me down. Like, why are they holding me down? And then she pulled a shish kebab skewer out of the kitchen cupboard. I'm like, oh shit. And she started packing all that hot plantain leaf down into the wounds. And I'm talking like bamboo under the nail kind of sensation. It was excruciating. Like she was going in under the nail, on top of the nail, between the pad, like in through here, under there, packing it everywhere. And I was screaming bloody murder. I thought she was torturing me because I had done something. Like, I didn't know what I'd done for her to do that to me. And my dad was like in tears because he knew that she was trying to help, but he knew that it was like torturous to me. And 2 days later, so she did that Sunday. On Tuesday, she came back, and my dad just held me on the chair and just kind of gave me a big bear hug and held me there. And she took these forceps and pulled it all out, and there was this hiss, like a literal hiss, like it was hermetically sealed by the plantain. And she had used bandaging soaked in the tea of it and wrapped them for those 2 days. And she pulled the leaf matter out, and there was this black and green, like infected pus that came out, and there was bits of gravel stuck to it from when I was walking on dirt roads and stuff, and it all came out. And we watched my toe just deflate, and she pulled out all this infection stuck to the plantain matter. She pulled it all out completely in one go. Just sat there and picked it all out with the tweezers, forceps, whatever they were. And the last bits of it, my dad didn't have to hold me because the pain was all gone, because there was no inflammation anymore. And so when I went to the doctor the next day for pre-op, he was like, oh, we don't have to cut it off. Your toes can remain. So he just numbed the area and cut the nail out, which is why I got mangled toes. The nails are missing and have grown back like weird saber-toothed tiger claw things. But she saved my feet. She saved my toes with this stuff. And the reasons are it's got that poultice-like ability to draw out infection, but also it has an anti-inflammatory inside of its sap that helped get rid of all that inflammation that was causing it to hold in all the infection. So this plant saved my feet, which could have in a sense saved my life, because without those toes I wouldn't have been able to walk as much as I do. So this plant I have a high regard for. The psyllium fiber seeds, I eat them every fall. I grind them up and just pour hot water on them, add them to my wild rice and stuff. They're a very important plant to us because we use it strictly mostly as a medicine. That psyllium fiber is medicine. The small leaves that you find at the base, we eat them like baby spinach, and they're high in iron, which is medicine to us. We look at this as medicine. Food is medicine in our culture. Like everything you eat is medicine. If you have a proper diet that is living off everything we're supposed to be having, you don't get sick. And if you do, it's a treatable problem. Like we don't have, it wasn't in our language, we had to figure out a word for diabetes. Think about that. The Greek had it 3,500 years ago. The Scots, the Irish, and the English have had it for at least 2,500 years. We cannot find any evidence of it in the Americas, ever, until 1930s. It starts showing up amongst First Nation communities. And by 1954, there was a conference in, I believe, Lac de Flambeau in Minnesota or Wisconsin. Get out of here. Daddy, long legs. And they had to meet, and they call it the sugar sickness, because the sugar makes you sick as you live off it. And everybody goes, oh, it's about the sugar, it's about the sugar. Anishinaabe ate 200 pounds of maple sugar a year per person. Per person. You're going to tell me it's sugar. It's everything. It's how we eat. It's how we live. Diabetes is a teaching. We have to live with that teaching every day. My father has it. My uncle had it. And then he went to a traditional diet, and it's gone now. And they're like getting ready to cut his feet off kind of diabetes. And he's fine now. So food is our medicine. This is medicine here. On that note, there's this little one right here who should be popping up. I saw some of their flowers the other day. And some of them are developing their fruit. They're developing their fruit, yeah.
Did you find a berry?
Yeah, pick some berries.
There's one red one right beside you.
Oh, there they are. Old Damon. Old Damon.
It's this. It's probably here.
So Old Damon, it means a lot of things. Our language is layered. For example, like saying Anishinaabe, like our name for ourselves, Anishinaabe, can mean like 7 different things to 7 different people. And people will be like, oh, that's not the right translation. Well, it is. They're all right. Because what we're trying to do is be practical. We try to say as many things as we can with as few words. And so like a word could have a literal, a metaphorical, a metaphysical, a metaspiritual, and a sacred and a comical translation. Old Damon means a lot of things. It means the heart berry, because Old Day to a lot of people means the heart. But if the literal translation is the fruit, the fruiting plant that all connects, because of how their vines work, they're a system, and it all comes back to the fruit. Just like our heart is connected to everything in our body through our circulatory system. It's talking about how it's the center, the hub. So like Odena is a town. The center of the town is Odena. That's how we kind of connect it all, our language. But it can also just simply mean the heart berry, because it reminds of us our heart. It reminds us of our way of life. And our story about it is long time ago, there was these 2 brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, and they loved to wrestle and horseplay. They liked the roughhouse, like my kid does. And they loved the roughhouse, and their parents would say, you got to be gentler, you got to be gentler, you got to be kinder. Stop hurting each other. And so they would go further back in the bush and hide from their parents and do it there. Kind of like kids do with backyard wrestling and stuff. And I'll admit that I did that as a kid myself. We built our own little rings back in the bush and beat the crap out of each other back there with sticks and stuff. We wanted to be on hardcore wrestling kind of shows. And those kids are the same. And this one time they were roughhousing a little too hard, and the younger brother got pushed over and he hit his head off a rock and killed himself. And he was dead. And his older brother, in shock and horror of what happened, just stood there for a while, and he realized, like, if I go back, like, we did exactly what we're not supposed to be doing. Like, that was an accident. I didn't kill him, he fell. But if I go back, like, this is gonna get bad on both of us, and it's gonna cause, like, more grief to my parents. So he buried the body of his brother and hid him. And he went back and he said he couldn't find his brother. And people went all over looking for that child everywhere, and they couldn't find him anywhere. But that brother had guilt. That living brother had a lot of guilt about what happened. Not telling them what had happened, not doing what he should have been doing, not listening to his parents, letting his little brother fall like that. And he'd go back to the grave and visit it. And plants would come up and he'd just pick them out of there, angry that things were taking over that garden or that burial. And he'd keep ripping them up and ripping them up. He became an older man, angry his whole life, never married, never had love in his life because he was so distraught about his brother's death. And people would leave him alone because he's never gotten over his brother going missing, is how they thought of it. And one day he'd gone back, he'd been sent on a trading mission, and he'd come back and there was this plant growing out with 3 leaves coming up. And he'd never seen that plant before. He thought about it, and he had picked it before off that grave, but he never actually looked at it before. And it had a little white flower on it. And he looked at it for a while, and he walked away. He left it alone. Came back a few days later, and he looked at it, and it was starting to form this little fruit, kind of greenish white. And he picked everything else around it, kept everything else back, picked out any of the other leaves. But he left that plant. He kept looking at it. And it turned into a red fruit, like these. And he heard it in his heart and in his mind. He heard that voice to say, pick it. And he picked the berry and said, eat it. And he ate it. And he felt this overwhelming relief. This message from his brother, from his little brother, like, I'm okay. I'm not angry at you. Stop holding this grudge. This berry to us is medicine of forgiveness. It teaches us to forgive ourselves. It teaches us to forgive others. A lot of those people that are going through that Truth and Reconciliation Commission over the last few years, they use this as a medicine. They drink the tea from the leaves. They eat those berries in our ceremonies. Every morning at our sunrise ceremony, every sweat we go to, every ceremony we do, we hold those strawberries, those gold daemon, specifically to help us forgive what happened to our ancestors, what happened to us, and what we're doing to others. Forgiveness is one of those things that it's lacking in our seven grandfather teachings, but it's the whole entirety of those seven grandfather teachings. Learning to forgive everything. So these berries are very sacred to us. On solstice, we call that Odaman Gizis, strawberry moon. And we used to have these festivals to celebrate that solstice by eating and harvesting and picking and celebrating those berries, because it's the first fruit of the year too, the first genuine fruit that we can ingest like easily without having to process it. And so we celebrate it. So this is a beautiful thing to find out here. And this is the one I talk about when it comes to our mindset. Like, we look at it like, yeah, there's the medicinal quality of the strawberry leaf and its medicines in the berries. Like, fuck that. Anishinaabe way of it is, this is our family. This berry is given us for generations a way to solve our problems, teaching us how we're supposed to be. Those seeds never being hidden away, exposed. We show ourselves, we bare our chests, we bare our hearts to everything. We're an honest people because it teaches us that. The way it interconnects to everybody and helps each other, that teaches us who we're supposed to be. The redness of that berry shows us how our heart is supposed to be full and healthy. If it's blackened like our heart could be, that's not good.